was fun though.
And we're live.
Yay! We are live.
Live.
Hi. Hello, cool people. Okay, so it's time for If We Are Sober. We are your hosts, Justin and Jenna, and this show is an extension of the International Free Thinkers Discord server. Much like our show, the IF server is a server that advocates for free thought, skepticism, and developing a positive online community. Though it is a secular server in nature, everyone is welcome, and we welcome you for joining us on our show today. Most of not most, if not all of you, excuse me, through the Atheist Community of Discord or ACD server, already know I am Jena Miyu, your Black female atheist. I am also a mod there on the server, as well as one of your hosts on the ACA show, The Nonprofits. And I have a background in nursing and health education, and I advocate for reaching out to Black atheists and expanding the atheist platform with empathy and positivity.
Woo.
How about you, Justin?
Yeah, so I guess I'm also involved in the Atheist Community Discord, which is a fan server for the Atheist Community of Austin, and I remember to bring my
That's cool. Coaster?
my coaster this time.
Yeah.
Um
I don't have mine yet.
Like Jenna said, we kind of run the International Free Thinkers Discord server, but there's also a Facebook page and a Facebook group, and the links are in the YouTube comments there. I run the Facebook page Skeptech, and I actually work in building automation. So that's kind of why that's going to be the topic for this week, and that's kind of why I'm interested in it. Speaking from experience, I can see firsthand how automation can streamline and make more efficient processes for managing, our buildings, our cars, our lives. But it also is very disruptive and can eliminate a lot of jobs, and also significantly increase the barrier to entry for jobs in these fields, in the jobs that are available.
So why? I'm wondering, because I feel that it's in a way automation at least has helped us not only advance or make our industries more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
But in what ways do you find that it has hindered, the workforce entirely?
Well, I mean, I think before we get into some of that stuff, I think there's we should probably cover some of the definitions that we're talking about and some of the most disruptive versions of automation.
Cool.
So one thing that there's a colloquial term, Luddite, where you'll hear people that are afraid of technology or don't want to learn or think technology is evil. You'll hear that term thrown around, and this is from the early 1800s, where people were called Luddites there was a group of people called the Luddites that went around destroying mills and workshops that were starting to use automated systems in lieu of humans. Now, humans used tools before this, and we would use tools to make our jobs more efficient. But this was when this group of people recognized that it wasn't just they were given more tools to be more efficient themselves, but they were being replaced altogether. So that's kind of like where this story starts in terms of industrialization and removing some of these jobs that were available and fully automating them. Some other things to be aware of is automation in general, which is basically any process that you can make a machine or a computer or a tool do over and over again without human intervention is what we would consider automation. And there's many different types of examples of this, not just what you would think in terms of computers, but anything that can repeat the same process. And even if you're just watching it, or if it makes your job easier, your life a little easier, getting alerts on your phone rather than checking for them, could be as simple as that. Some other terms is artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is a branch of computer science that is concerned with building machines that are capable of performing tasks that would typically require human intelligence. Now, we're talking like when there's like some famous examples of like machines that are playing chess or playing Go, the Chinese game. But to get any even deeper than that, we're creating machines that can make human-like decisions and judgment calls, and can analyze data that you couldn't just do. That's just a simple algorithm of say 1 + 1 = 2. But we're creating software and computers that can take many different inputs and many different types of inputs and analyze them, in this layered way, like a human would.
So it's a bit more intuitive than just saying following like, I guess, a set data set. Like, okay,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not just, instructions come in and results go out.
Okay.
It's a lot more to it. And that goes into deep learning and machine learning. And both of these have to do with where we can create these systems in the software where the more data we give it and the more sensors it has and the more information that's coming in, the smarter these applications become, to the point where they're far better than humans are at recognizing the tasks that they're used for. And this is used in like speech recognition, speech translation, facial recognition, and then there's even some new very very state of the art applications for this, of like of looking at like X-ray scans and looking for tumors, and a lot of medical applications where a robot can scan the entire X-ray instantly and notice those fine details that a human eye may not necessarily pick up. And that can lead to significantly more early detection of anomalies than what we would pick up normally. So, and that's from analyzing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of different pictures, and learning what the anomalies are. And in the early stages, a human would go and point out, say, this is cancer, this is not, this is a growth, this is benign, this is whatever it is. Right. And over time, the machine gets better at it than we are.
Right. So it's trying to eliminate that human error. And it's so funny because, and I recognize this in the medical field too. And we've come so far as to not only just like virtually, or where a doctor is from a distant location performing a surgery with the assistance of a robotic arm or some type of mechanical device. But it's come so far as to, let's just say it's between a doctor in a separate room, and it's just the robotic device actually just performing the surgery itself. And say, for instance, with a gastric bypass surgery, there are certain staples that you have to place intricately at certain locations to where it can't be too close to where the patient can't be allowed to properly digest food. And then so those intricate staples need to be placed at certain locations so that the robot knows where to place them, versus if a human does it, those mistakes can easily be made. And that robot is doing it all on its own, where it's taking multiple scans, like you said, and just delicately doing that process with basically the doctor just supervising and not having any type of hands-on at all. So that's,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And the scary thing about that is there's going to be a point in the future, probably
Mhm.
not very long, where that doctor doesn't even need to be there anymore. Right. So if the doctor is just giving, giving a nudge and monitoring and making sure this robotic arm and this process is basically on track, maybe manipulating a little bit, doing some error correcting.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, we have to recognize that there's the computers that they're using and the systems they're using are collecting all this data, and they're going to use it to build better and better machines. Every generation is going to be more accurate, more precise,
Mhm.
and make more and more decisions on its own.
But I feel like we're coming a lot closer to these automations taking over more labor intensive jobs.
Hmm.
I think that's what you're more kind of pushing your approach towards.
Yes, in the beginning, well, currently in the beginning, through now, that is what we typically think of when we say automation is going to displace workers. It is going
Hmm.
to supplant workers in industries. But there's even, I mean, it's hard to imagine, but even a lot of this like clerical back office, phone answering, a lot of this type of work can be automated. It's further down the line, but it's all doable.
Yeah.
We have like it was a big deal last year, I think it was, where Google unveiled their AI voice, uh, assistant technology that can make reservations for you, that can call a taxi for you, that can take, basically be your personalized answering machine and interact with people that call for you. Um, Now, once this technology becomes sufficiently advanced to where people think that it can uh, be good enough to interact with humans in a way that uh, they'll get the answers and stuff that they need. I mean, this could basically wipe out call center jobs overnight.
Yeah.
A million, and there's like 2.5 million call center jobs still in the U.S. that can be rendered obsolete, almost instantly with the purchase of this software package from one of these big tech companies.
Huh.
I mean, there are some jobs, um, like if you're a medical professional and somebody wants to communicate with a human to have that personal connection, that'll probably take longer because that personal connection is part of the added value of the service from the company. But if you're just doing tech support or answering complaints and stuff like that, those can be wiped out overnight when this gets far enough and affordable to deploy on a large scale.
Hmm. I think like it's been slowly building to advancements in technology, advancements in machinery, assembly lines, things like that, especially in these hard labor jobs where, in the early 1900s, when the development of the union workers happened and, big industries didn't want to pretty much deal with all that. So slowly but surely over time, we're having these big industry companies replacing all this human work and driving them out to move in, more efficient, less costly machinery to just replace all that. Just having humans do those tasks. So I'm wondering, because I, to my understanding, at least I know of there being on-site training to where you can educate up hard labor workers so that way they can be trained on site to just advance their knowledge and the advanced technology that is put in place in the companies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So looking at the numbers, the reports and stuff from different CEOs and different organizations and what they think about this, there's definitely a segment of the workforce that they will invest in and uptrain to utilize and leverage these more advanced technologies within their companies. But then you can't discount the fact that it's cheaper usually to hire somebody that's already trained and has that skill set that you're looking for, especially if it's in a competitive market where you have a lot more options to choose from when there's so many people available. Because the cost of training somebody that's going from like a less technical skill set to something that's more technical, it can be very costly, and it might not necessarily even pay off. So that's that it's not that it's a risk, but that's decisions that these HR departments and executives have to make within their company to decide how much are they going to uptrain, how much are they going to hire new people, because there's definitely a benefit of having longer term employees that have kind of climbed through the ranks and learned multiple facets of your company. So uptraining is definitely a thing, but it's definitely not a 100% process where basically everybody on the bottom gets trained to basically take over a job that displaced their current job or their old one. I mean, the whole point of automation, the whole point of all of this is to reduce the number of workers that you need and to make your tasks more efficient and more cost effective. So it's inherent to the system, to the process, to reduce the number of overall workers, because labor cost is generally the highest cost to any business.
So, okay, then, so instead of constructing machinery and putting them in place, or instead of constructing machinery and putting in place automation that would replace workers, wouldn't the idea instead be designing machinery that can be collaborative instead? Like, instead of it just the automation or the technology of it just dominating that type of work, it can just work in conjunction with the worker too.
Right, and this kind of goes back to the first thing I said with the Luddites, where there's a difference between giving these tools to become more efficient, and these, say you're a machine operator on an assembly line, and every part of the process as a human that goes and pushes a stamp down or uses a gun to screw in something, versus having the robot do it automatically. And as we move along, as these systems become more accurate and more efficient, there's less and less need for human intervention, because on some of these, where if it's like you're measuring a distance and then you're performing an action, that's pretty straightforward in terms of using a computer, a computerized system to handle. Now there's a lot of jobs still that they're working on automating, like truck driving, where they're not quite 100%, and self-driving cars and all this. They can get to like 97, 98%, but that 2% can be deadly. So they will bring humans in or have humans ride, and kind of take over for a small portion of this, but the majority of it is going to be automated. So there's definitely a place for us to use these tools, but the end goal, because when you're in a corporate society like this, the end goal is to increase your profits, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to decrease your labor cost. So with things like COVID, and increasing healthcare costs, and increased standard of living, these automated replacements, these robots, these machines and tools that can help eliminate humans are becoming more and more cost effective than having a human laborer would be.
So, do we have a huge tax on labor, or is that, I think you noted that was China.
Well,
Right.
we don't necessarily have a well. Look, so the thing is that automation is heavily subsidized
Mm.
by the government, and that's kind of exasperating. The problem is that we don't want to pay humans or people the monthly stipend, like somebody like Yang would, because he recognized all these problems.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but we're willing to subsidize automation and robots and all these new innovative technologies, self-driving cars, and all these green energy and stuff like that, and which is further making this a more rapid process. And we're doing this while simultaneously not putting any effort to retrain the people that are gonna be displaced.
And oh no, go ahead. Finish your thought. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say we have one of the big things that gets brought up every time there's a conversation about this is the trucking industry. So
Mm-hmm.
the trucking industry has, I wrote it down. The trucking industry has 3.5 million truck drivers. That and the so there's a couple things going on with that. Is that there's a huge shortage, hundreds of thousands of drivers short in the industry overall. But the problem is that, one, trucking is a very hard job. It's hard on your body physically, and
Mm-hmm.
if you have to load and unload, you have to sit there for long periods of time. Your diet is not good. Your exercise is not good. It's really hard on your body. So there's a huge shortage to begin with. That it's because it's difficult. The pay is not amazing for how hard the job is on your body. It's kind of a low skill,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of time, and a lot of time that you don't get paid for, especially if you're long haul.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. It takes us like a large physical toll.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side is that we've been hearing for years now that the truck driving industry is being automated away with self-driving trucks and cars. So less and less people are interested in going down a path that they think won't be there in 10 years.
Right. And then that actually, because you spoke about, it being such a laborious job on the body and stuff, because I'm wondering, since we're shifting so much towards subsidizing full automation, subsidizing, green energy and advancement in these technologies, and moving away from uptraining people to do the work, I'm wondering, because of the fact that, and it made me think of, ever since the ACA became law, with that, the demand placed on these businesses to provide coverage for these employees, it's causing more cost for them to cover each person. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why they're trying to drive them out to, implement more automation, so that
Mm-hmm.
way it can reduce that cost,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yep. And if you think about it, I mean, look, these robots and self-driving cars, these machines, they don't get sick. They
Mm-hmm.
don't get tired. They
Mm-hmm.
don't demand more wages. There's no cost of living increase. There's so many different things that are directly tied to our labor cost that you just don't see when you have these machines do the work. And one thing that we don't think about when we talk about automating a specific job like truck driving
Yeah.
is there's actually more jobs, um, support jobs that support the truck driving industry than there are truck driving jobs. There's about 5 million jobs of gas station workers, truck stops, motels and motel workers, um, people that do like loading and unloading. There's more of those jobs than there is truck driving jobs, and all of those would go away pretty much instantly overnight too. It's the same idea that when you see like mining towns where they build a mine, and then people come to that town to work in the mine,
Mm-hmm.
but then a whole town builds up around it
Mm-hmm.
with stores, banks, grocery,
Right.
bars, but and
Yeah.
all that collapses overnight when the mine closes.
Yeah, that's how most of those rural areas that you see in the upper Midwest area, I guess you could say, have
Midwest
like,
though.
yes, exactly, have like grown up, and now all of that is virtually almost gone. So that makes sense. I almost forgot my question. I'm wondering, uh no, I'll come back to that.
Yep. So,
If
oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm thinking of
No,
another question.
I was gonna say that since we're talking about these towns and these industries collapsing, we're not creating a lot of opportunity for these people to find other avenues. So we historically we've had good paying, low barrier to entry jobs that as long as you are willing to dedicate your time to an
Mhm.
employer, you would make a living wage and you would be able to support your family. It was a pretty safe bet that if you would trade your time for a living wage. And now it's shifting to not only just your time, but also this like tremendous skill set, which leads to all this debt and all this other stuff just to
Mhm.
earn a similar wage that you would before. If somebody would have earned, say, the equivalent of 50, 60 grand before, working on assembly line, and now you need a college degree just to start off, to get there, and you
Yeah.
and you have enough debt that's going to take you 5 or 10 years to pay down, and there's no really good in most fields. There's not even a strong guarantee that you're going to make more, a lot more than you would have
Right.
without it.
Right. So that's the other issue I have. Like, why put yourself through because college, going to a 4-year university is hard in itself to get through because no one has that money nor ability really to take out X amount of money for federal loans and stuff. That's difficult, and even more difficult to pay back on the back end. So
Hmm.
to try to strive and do that for X amount of years just to make a certain amount of money seems almost like a waste of time just to get to a certain pay rate. Um, especially since if it's not for something like like a medical field or like a some type of business thing. So if obviously there's an issue with not equating the cost of living with wages, like there's an obvious imbalance. um my question is, if like, can we just push for, I'm sure there's more of a push, and I know of actual schools that are federally or state or locally funded that have vocations or allow for workers to be trained on the job or be trained for that job um, within like X amount of months, and are actually go to school virtually for free because it's just given to them through contracts and grants.
Yeah, we've actually have programs here in Michigan and in Detroit specifically when they were coming out of their bankruptcy, and we saw the market was improving and the construction was improving, and there was a lot of private businesses moving into the city. As they made a requirement where they would where anybody doing new business in the city had to donate, put money towards this fund, and that fund was geared towards training Detroit residents.
Hmm,
So there's programs in the city now where you can get into a skilled trade, um, with these funded programs from these corporations that are wanting to do business in the city.
that's good.
But that it's going to take probably a pretty big a public private um, plan coming together to make something like this work.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Another thing I wanted to touch on is that, so we're displaced, like you mentioned, is that if you're not getting into, say, the medical field or some sort of business, or in my case some sort of STEM type of industry, it almost feels like it's not worth it.
Hmm.
And when we're telling people now, it's like, hey, well, you were a truck driver, well, you got to learn to code if you want to stay relevant. We're telling people they got to learn IT skills,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
people that have never had to use a computer in their life.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and they feel like we're telling them, learn IT, learn medical, learn business, learn all these high paying jobs, and if you don't, it's your fault. It's
Mm-hmm.
your fault that you can't earn a living wage because your whole industry went away and your skill set is outdated, and you should have learned this other thing that that makes money. And there's a lot of resentment that's built up from that attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a lot of our leaders are telling everybody should learn the code, and it's just that's not realistic. It's not feasible. It's kind of a silly thing to say that's how we should be relying on for the future of our economy, is
Mm-hmm.
everybody learns to do this one small thing.
Mm-hmm. It is so funny because it's almost every morning when I like get ready for work and everything, and I hear the commercials from like XM radio or whatever, I hear this one particular commercial where it's like advertising, oh, you've been recently laid off your job. Why not get into this 3-month program to learn IT with zero to no background education? I'm like, really?
Mhm.
Like, is it that easy? Like, I can do that? Like, that's odd to me.
Yeah, so they have like these boot camp, they call them boot camps,
Uh,
where it's almost like crunching an entire college degree into a small 2 or 3 months. And of course, with any accelerated programs, you don't actually get a good education.
no, you
They
just
they teach you the bare minimum that you need to get your certifications, and then you get thrown out into the field and you don't know what you're doing.
mm,
You don't know anything about anything. You don't even know if you like it.
mhm.
You've just heard on these commercials and on TV so many times that this is how you make a living now.
Yeah. And especially given this year when, a lot of people have lost their jobs and you hear that and it's like, well, I got to do something. That's scary because
Hmm.
then you're just putting people to, at their last resort to just take up something just because they have to do something to support themselves or their families or what have you. And it's what's the benefit for them from that other than risking getting some low paying job all over again, or just getting virtually no joy from it either too. And that brings me to a question actually. Speak I think I asked you this before. We were talking earlier this week about it made me curious about job numbers, like monthly job reports.
Hmm.
I don't know how all that is really tabulated or what they really look for. From what I did read, they kind of like generally gather like from two surveys. I think they're known from like current population surveys of households and current employment statistics surveys of employees, and they estimate the two of the number of employed and non-employed in the economy to determine the health of the economy. Basically, from what I gathered, I just didn't know. So is that really like just an overinflated number? Is that really looking at public sector, private sector? Does that even matter?
It's overinflated in the sense that we're eliminating good paying jobs, and we're replacing them with a lot of the gig economy, with the service industry,
Hmm.
um, with these other industries that don't pay nearly as much, and people don't tend to look at them as careers. They're not. It's not like a big company that you walk into and you work there for 30 years and you retire.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If anybody can download an app on their phone, and then 5 minutes later they're an Uber employee or an Uber contractor, then now they're unemployed, right? And these stopgap measurements that people are taking upon themselves to kind of support themselves, but it's not a true one for one. What the type of job that we had versus the type of job that we're gaining back after the pandemic, and after we're moving away from a lot of different types of work, and we're moving to a lot of remote work. We're moving
Mhm.
to more automated systems, and you can see where the recovery is at and who is winning by looking at the value of these certain businesses in the tech sectors, and watching their stocks and their value skyrocket.
Yeah.
Because you have and it's concentrated in very small pool of businesses. One thing I did want to touch on, because I know we're trying to keep this relatively short, is that it's definitely not all doom and gloom in terms of automation and jobs and what kind of changes come about from implementing these technologies and ideas. One thing I learned is that in the 1900s, about 1900, about 40% of all the jobs in the U.S. were on the farm. So, and now there's about only 2%. So with our increased tools and technologies and science, and our seeds, our ability to harvest, our ability to predict the weather better, everything that we've learned and gathered and created over the 100 years or so has allowed us to reduce the number of people that need to work on these farms, while also being able to support significantly more people. We were at like a billion at 1900, or some much smaller number, and now we're at 8 billion.
Wow.
And we're able to feed all 8 billion in the US, 230 so million. No, wait, I can't numbers.
You can't numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't math.
So. Yeah. What is there? 330 million people.
I guess someone math, please.
Yeah, 330 million. So we're able to feed all 330 million people with less than 2% of our workers on the farm. And this freed up a lot of labor hours and creativity hours and manpower to do other things, which gave rise to a lot more innovation, more creativity, more technology. And the goal long term is to utilize these efficient systems and tools and everything to free up even more people to do more creative, more human tasks and more human endeavors. Because there are things that you can technically, it's all fun and games until it becomes sentient. There are things that, I mean, technically you can, but like writing books, being a reporter, playing sports, I don't know, doing talk shows. There's a lot of things that you can't really automate that, giving our decent quality jobs that aren't, destroying our bodies every day and giving us, a solid, an 8-hour workday because we can afford to do it now because, we're that advanced that we don't need to work from sun up to sundown anymore. But it gives us space to do these more creative endeavors and to, just kind of expand on the human experience rather than, laboring away on a field somewhere all day, every day.
Yeah. I mean, I see that point, and I don't too much discourage, automation and everything. I think it's nice that we have the advancements that we have in order to, be as efficient as we can be for, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it because on one side, obviously, I hate for hardworking people to lose out on the work that they deserve and need to support themselves. Obviously, they do need to rightfully be paid a fair and livable wage for it, which I don't truly feel that most are. And I actually know a person as a prime example of that. It's like almost like terrible, barely livable. But at the same time, how would, with, for instance, with the pandemic, how would we be able to mass produce enough mass and enough machines for, respirations, and enough to supplement PPE equipment for hospitals and medical buildings and clinics and things like that. uh, it's difficult for me to, I don't know. I think if we could try to build upon, growing green energy, but make it so that we can grow and advance jobs for both, um, for humans too, then I think it'd be better across the board. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that doing that in a way that doesn't completely displace human workers,
Hmm.
because if you leave it strictly up to um, the corporations, the businesses that have to basically improve their bottom line at all cost, that would be their intentions. But you have to create a government business partnership and programs to make it worth it, to and saying it makes it sound like it's a bad thing that we have to incentivize businesses to keep people on.
Hmm.
But businesses are just entities within our society, and there's nothing wrong with us working together to figure out solutions. But so there's uh yeah, it's definitely more of a policy, legislative, a plan to, what do we do when we no longer have to go to work to sort parts or stock grocery shelves or work as a cashier or drive a truck or answer phones, millions and millions and millions of jobs that are being automated. What do we do then? And there's a lot of plans. Some of them are popular, not some, most not so much, in terms of like UBI, or Andrew Yang's dividend, freedom dividend, which is UBI. So there's a lot of plans out there, but they're not really popular, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of like legit policies or legit thought, because nobody's really talking about it,
Hmm.
of what are we going to do over the next 10 years, because it does take time when we want to be, if we want to be proactive, it takes a lot of time to get ahead of it,
Yeah.
because these things are advancing much more rapidly than we give it credit for.
Yeah, they are. And my only final thought is, it definitely does seem obvious to me that, obviously someone needs to repair and maintain these
Hmm.
machines, or are we just going to start building bots to repair bots?
Oh yeah.
Right? So if we can at least train up us to function in those positions, that's where I see more job creation can flourish.
Right, so there's going to be more job creation in certain sectors, but the level of displacement is going to far outnumber the job creation numbers. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So if you have one repair person for 10 robots, and those 10 robots replaced 100 people, you know what I mean? That's probably pretty realistic in terms of what the numbers would look like.
Hmm. Well, I learned a lot. Thank
There,
you, Justin.
wow. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot more. There's a lot of
Yeah.
subtopics. I definitely have a lot to learn. There's, if you like getting into the economy side of it, and the numbers and the effects and the projections, that's definitely
Mhm.
not my strong point. I work in automation, building automation, centralizing, managing, monitoring, like campuses and universities and hospitals, and focusing on making their buildings and their infrastructure more efficient and more cost efficient.
Yeah, I know you
Um,
and I talk all the time, and occasionally you tell me like almost paragraph forms of what exactly you're doing that day, and I'm like, that's cool. Like I can see your excitement about it, and I try to diligently understand like what you're saying, and it seems cool because then I'm learning what exactly you're doing on the job, and so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's exciting, and I've always felt fortunate to be interested in doing the type of work that seems to be doing well in the economy.
Yeah.
So I've been interested in STEM and IT programming, it's automation type stuff for a long time. Even back in the military, doing electronics work there. So I've always felt fortunate in a way to go into something that is lucrative and that you can have fun doing and also make a living on it. And I'm sure a lot of people in the medical field feel the same way. But there's a lot of other stuff out there, a lot of other jobs out there that need to get done that
Mhm.
you know that's a little more questionable of your long term projections.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to think about, keep in mind, and we can kind of dive into more specifics of different parts of different technologies, and maybe learn more about the economic impact
Yeah.
rather than this kind of broad overview of it.
We definitely should. I know you have a friend. You said you had a friend.
I have friends.
We should bring friends. I like friends. We should bring friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I need friends. I don't have any friends. Okay. Any final words? Final thoughts?
No, no, I don't think so.
Okay. This was cool. Thank you. We will definitely touch on this, especially more details and specifics about this. So, thank you so much for this topic. Thank you, everyone else, for joining us this evening. Please be sure to like this video. Join Justin and I on our Discord. There is a link in the description down below. There is a tiny URL right there for you. Justin on Facebook at facebook.com/skeptech, and also me on facebook.com/your black female atheist. Until next time, cool people. Justin and I are cool peoples, and if we are cool peoples, then you are cool peoples too. Bye.